Man, look, I am as excited today about what we're gonna do as anything I've done in a while. It's winter time, late winter here in South Louisiana, and the fishing's just not the best right now. It's gonna get a lot better soon, but right now it's just tough. Well, a great thing to do in the off season is to figure out what your lures look like underwater. We all kind of wonder that as we're fishing, right? You wonder, what are the fish seeing? What's making fish hit? What's making them perhaps not hit? Well, getting some lures in a swimming pool will teach you a lot about how your lure looks when you do certain things with the rod. Not only that, but how different weights of jig heads and different lures look differently underwater. Well, today we're going to show you some of that. We're going to put some GoPros in the pool. I'm as excited to learn what you're going to learn today as anybody, because this is going to teach me as much as it's going to teach you, and I can't wait to do it. So what we got here is a long punching rod. Got braided line on it, nice and strong. And what I did is I tied it to a stick inside of a traffic cone. On top of the traffic cone, I have a clamp with a GoPro. I'm gonna lower this into the water, and that will provide us a great perspective on how these lures look underwater. Now look, this pool hasn't been used in months. It is loaded with leaves. It looks like a swamp, but at least the water's still clean. So that's gonna tell us all we need to know. I'm excited to do this. I really can't wait. All right, so I got the camera on. I'm just gonna lower it into the water. Now I guess the hardest part is gonna be getting it angled correctly. Yes, it is. There we go, perfect. All right, that's gonna work. That's gonna work well. Here in South Louisiana, everybody fishes soft plastic paddle tails with various jig head weights. Very popular weight is 3/8 ounce, because it really kind of works well in depths of 10 feet or more, maybe even 8 feet or more. But I've definitely found over my career that lighter jig heads work better in certain situations. So I really want to see how a bait looks differently underwater, jigged, depending on the heaviness of the jig head. So I'm starting with the 3/8 ounce jig head. This is a limbo slice colored Matrix Shad. Went with a real bright colored bait so you could see it underwater. So let's see how it looks. All right, so obviously where we're casting right now is about 4 feet. That's not exactly real world. If I was fishing 4 feet, I would never go with a 3/8 ounce jig head. You can see how that bait just barely hops off the bottom. This is how my rod motion would be if I was fishing this bait. I would not be moving it much at all. I'd just be kind of crawling it. All right, so what everybody knows is that fish tend to bite a lure on the fall. So you want that lure falling as long as possible and as slowly as possible, so it's really tantalizing on the way down. So what I'm gonna do, I'm gonna cast right in front of the camera lens so you can see this bait as it's falling and see how good it looks. And that's the look that you really want. So now we're gonna see how differently the lure looks if we put this exact same bait on a 1/8 ounce jig head. All right, so here we go with the 1/8 ounce, a lot lighter jig head. Let's see how it looks in front of the camera. Okay, one thing that immediately jumps out at me, and I wasn't expecting this. This bait is falling so slowly with this 1/8 ounce weight that the tail's not even flapping on the way down. I almost kind of think that's gonna hurt you. Look at that. It looks almost like a dead stick just falling down in the water with a lot less tail action. Now, a positive is that when I do retrieve the bait, it stays up and falls much more slowly. So there is a longer duration of the fall than with the 3/8 ounce. But the tail action, again, is just not as good, even on those falls. The initial fall as well as the hops. All right, so my research is definitely paying off. And I gotta tell you, my hypothesis is proven to be a little bit inaccurate, because I thought what was gonna happen is that this lure is gonna look a lot better on a 1/8 ounce than a 3/8 ounce, and it really kind of doesn't. It doesn't look as good. Now, the fall rate is a lot slower, and there will be times, obviously, that's gonna help you, but I like that tail action on the 3/8 ounce. And you know, this bait in general has a great deal amount of tail action, so it's not like it's just a stiff bait that needs a lot of weight to make it move. So still, it's gonna be some trial and error with fishing locations. Obviously, you never want to throw a 1/8 ounce in swift current areas or in very, very deep areas. And I have had fishing trips where we did much better on lighter jig heads than on heavy jig heads. But I don't know, I think I kind of sold the 3/8 ounce short a little bit. I'm more inclined to use it in the future, even in a little bit shallower water. All right, so I wasn't planning on doing this. I was only gonna do an 1/8 and a 3/8. But my mind is so blown, I want to see what happens on a 1/4 ounce. So we're gonna go right in the middle with a 1/4 ounce weight and see how that changes the motion of the bait. All right, first cast with the 1/4 ounce. I'm truly excited to see what happens here. Wow, okay, not a lot of tail action on that either. Definitely better than the 1/8, but not like we had with the 3/8, not at all. Really, really slow fall. And look, let's be honest, it's not only the tail action of a bait that attracts bites, it's also how you work it. But that tail action definitely can be a difference maker on tough days. Okay, so let's see if the next axiom is also disproved. Everybody knows braid has no stretch, mono's got a lot of stretch. So when you're fishing with braid, a slight movement of the rod tip has a big impact on the bait. Fishing with mono, you can be much more whippy with the end of that rod, and it's gonna have less of an impact on the bait. So I'm gonna make casts with braided line. Of course, I got a fluorocarbon leader tied on. I'm gonna make some other casts with monofilament and see how the motions of the rod tip impact the bait underwater. All right, so I think I know what that footage is gonna show, but I'm gonna discover it when you do. I can tell what I'm feeling here when I'm fishing. Definitely that mono is way spongier, but how much does it really affect that bait underwater? All right, and the last pool check is gonna be weight of a jig head under a cork. I am a big believer in using extremely light jig heads when fishing under a cork, because that bait falls so much more slowly, looks much more like a shrimp. And I think almost all the time, speckled trout and redfish, even bass, and our coastal marshes, I think they think they're feeding on shrimp, even though what we're throwing them are paddle tail soft plastics. You want it falling as slowly as possible. But I really want to see, I'm excited to see how quickly these baits fall with the various jig heads. So what I'm going to start with here is a 1/4 ounce. Really, nobody fishes a 3/8 ounce under a cork. If you do, that's really overkill. But I got a 1/4 ounce here. What I generally fish myself is a 1/16 ounce. So I want to see the difference and how that looks underwater. Let's go check it out. Man, that was so much fun. I learned a lot just even watching the lures in the pool, but I really can't wait to get home and check out the footage. Now, obviously, I had one of my tenets of my fishing philosophies kind of blown, or at least I think I did. I'm gonna get home and see if I did. But another one was absolutely confirmed. No doubt in my mind, fishing those lighter jig heads under corks is a lot better. Now, I'm guessing the underwater footage is gonna show that this bait was producing no tail action on this 1/16 ounce jig head. Look at that jig head, that's tiny.
Ooh, tiny.
But I don't think it matters, because I think, again, that the game fish in our marshes are thinking that that is a shrimp, not a minnow or a croak or anything trying to get away from them. They think it's a shrimp. And if you've seen a shrimp falling in the water column, it doesn't have a whole lot of action at all. It just falls, and then every now and then it'll pop. And that's what happens when you pop the cork. That bait jumps up and it just barely falls. You got that heavy jig head on there. It's going down much more quickly. Yeah, you might have a little bit of tail action, but I think that slow fall in the water column is what really inspires them to feed. It's my philosophy anyway. I'm gonna get home and see what all this shows. Well, that's it. Hopefully you enjoyed today's video. If you did, please subscribe to Marsh Man Masson on YouTube, and definitely give us a like. Hit the like button, the thumbs up button right down here. It means a lot to us. And leave a comment. Let us know what you thought. Let us know if you've done your own pool tests at home. And let us know if some of your hypotheses, some of your fishing tenets have been blown by what you learned by throwing lures in a swimming pool.